I'm gonna try saying that one again. There's a lot of passion in it. Hello, my name is Sophie. I'm excited to be doing some videos here at the Northeast Georgia History Center, introducing a few Japanese textile techniques. I am not an expert on any of them, so the idea is that we're learning together, and you can see what kinds of things you can create with not too much experience. So we've already looked at shibori dyeing and sashiko stitching. This video is about Boro, which is yet another technique that arose from necessity. Put simply, it's a form of patchwork. So this video will be a little more philosophical, which I'm very excited about. I love making things, but what really drives my appreciation for handmade things is where they come from and why people originally began creating them. These days, fabric is very accessible, whether it be whole bolts you can buy at the fabric store or in the form of brand new clothing. Our modern fashion is also based on newness. We're supposed to look new and fresh all the time. So if your clothes get holes in them or they start pilling, which they might do more easily now because our clothes aren't as well made as in the past, it's normal to just throw them away. And that's not to say that nobody mends their clothes, but it's outside of our overall culture. The word Boro comes from Boro, which means tattered or rags. Peasants, really anywhere, but in this case in Japan, did not have ready access to new fabrics, so they repaired whatever they had or could get and would continue repairing it for generations. Another reason for continually patching garments was warmth. In northern Japan, people mostly had access to hemp, which wasn't very warm, so the layers were especially helpful. It's also just really cold, so you want to wear layers. Over time, repeated repairs created really unique and beautiful worn garments. Boro has a visual aesthetic, but it's not just decorative, it's about survival. As living standards eventually rose, people got rid of their Boro and got new things. But Boro is now being recognized for its sustainability and its place in people's heritage. Life was not always easy for people who made and wore Boro garments, but I think it's important to highlight that people from all walks of life contribute to culture and create things, and there's a beauty that can be found even in these daily objects. One of my hobbies is making costumes, and an important thing that taught me is that clothing tells a story. I learned about Boro while researching for a costume I was making. I wanted to make an adventurer character, and it made sense to me that their clothing might get worn, so I searched for Japanese patchwork. And I was excited to find that Japanese patchwork was not only a very specific thing, but had such a rich history. I've always had fun learning about Japan because I think anyone born in the 90s and later has had an especially big exposure to Japanese media. But even if these shows and books are being translated into English, they were originally made for a Japanese audience. And as a teenager, what really spurred my interest in Japanese culture as a whole was finding the origin and meaning behind all of these things that I already recognized. So coming back to Boro, after I learned what it was, I began to notice it. So this artwork for the old woman from Kubo and the Two Strings shows her wearing a Boro kimono. And if you play Animal Crossing, the designs for Sao Jones and Daisy May, who are both farmers, shows stitching that is reminiscent of Boro. And knowing where Boro comes from and who wore it, we now know a little bit more about these characters. So my final endeavor was to make my own Boro. I made some samples as practice, and I mended some clothes as well. So this white sample I showed in the sashiko video, and I really like my color matching on it. I tried to use patterns that feel authentic, so nothing that's like too bright or too modern feeling like what you would get at the craft store. I think out of everything here, this one right here is like the most modern. It looks a little bit more Art Deco or like European, but the colors match, so I put it on there. So I'm making a costume that I'm going to need a white little head covering for. So I'm going to add to this one a bit in the back, make it more like a triangle, and I'm going to use it for that costume. So here's a red Boro sample I made that I was less happy with. I think some of the fabrics on here are too whimsical and feel out of place with the traditional design, and I'm especially pointing to these and this one. These feel very modern, craft store. So these were samples I made with scraps from my fabric bin, but mending your own clothes with Boro is a way to tell your own story. If you've had any piece of clothing for a long time, you've surely made memories while wearing it. Or maybe it just fits really well and you'd like to repair it in a creative way. And that reminds me, there's something called visible mending. So if Boro has interested you so far, give that one a look as well. So these shorts I've had since I was a teenager, and they're perfect. They're a good length, they fit me really well, and I always feel really comfortable wearing them, which is such a challenge to find. Like, when you find a good pair of shorts, you hold on to it. So when I found a hole in the worst possible place, and this was after a full day of wearing them, I did not want to throw them away. So that made them a perfect candidate for my Boro experiment. So with the fabric I used, I wanted to keep the Japanese theme, so I used this Japanese inspired fabric that I had already in my scrap bin, and I made a repair. So I made two repairs actually. So I'm gonna turn it inside out so you can see, like I said in the Sashiko video, ideally these won't be super visible, but I am still learning. But you can see right here is where the original hole was. And since I wanted to get a lot of practice and I really wanted to own the Boro look, I did a huge patch and I went way over the hole itself. That's also the case right here on the side. It actually took me a minute to find the hole, but it is right there. But I also made the patches so big because I wanted to see how it would reinforce the fabric. And these shorts, the rest of them is really very soft, which makes them quite comfortable, but they are also becoming threadbare. So I was happy to see that right here where I had added the extra thread and the patches, it really did reinforce the fabric. So since the fabric is rather threadbare, I'm sure more holes will develop, but I'm actually excited to add more patches and add to my shorts. So this is a sweater jacket thing I've had for a few years, and I bought it because I liked how it was like boxy and easy to wear, and it's been a great thing to throw on before just heading out. But when I got my puppy, he had so much energy and he would not stop chewing on my clothes. And this is kind of bad, but after a while I would just let him do it. So he bit a couple holes in this jacket and I just threw it in my mending pile. And that came in handy because I decided to mend it with some Sashiko patches that I showed in our Sashiko video. And I'm still working on it and it's a little sloppy, but I like the direction. And to me, this is more fun than just wearing a jacket with holes on it. See, so I've got my jacket, and then right up here we've got us a little patch. And then you saw the holes in the shoulder, so I'm gonna put some patches there. And I think it'll be just a cute little surprise and it'll add some character to the jacket. Like the shorts, maybe over time there will be more holes in it and it'll become a really interesting piece. So thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the Northeast Georgia History Center for even more. Bye!